Now let's look at Russia, a country the West desperately wanted to isolate. When the war in Ukraine began in 2022, the Western powers had a strategy. They cancelled Russia. They closed their embassies in Moscow, they slapped sanctions and seized Russian assets. They removed Moscow from global financial systems, and this forced hundreds of Western businesses to shut shop in Russia. Big names like Apple, McDonald's, Mercedes-Benz all made an exit. The message was clear: no business with Moscow. All of this happened in 2022. We are now more than 3 years into the war, and with a new president in the White House, things are changing significantly and rapidly. The US president is engaging with Russia. Donald Trump is speaking to Vladimir Putin. Their diplomats are meeting frequently. They're working on a peace deal, and they're talking about normalizing relations with Russia. This is a drastic shift in American policy just from 5 months ago. Washington's strategy is going from boycott to business. And on cue, Western companies are eyeing a comeback. They want to return to Russia. But they have one concern: sanctions. They want the sanctions to be lifted so that business can go back to normal. And this is easier said than done, because look at the scale of the sanctions. The West has slapped, and listen to this, the West has slapped more than 28,000 sanctions on Moscow. Yes, 28,000 sanctions. Removing even a few will be a long, drawn process. And there are other roadblocks too, like re-entry. You see, Western firms spent the last 3 years ending operations in Russia. This included closing down outlets, abandoning supply chains, and finding alternative markets. All of this takes time. Many Western businesses even sold off their stakes to Russian businesses. McDonald's is a good example. Before the war, it had 800 outlets in Russia. It sold all of them. They're now rebranded as Vkusno and Tochka. That's what McDonald's is called in Russia. Then there is Starbucks. They too sold their units to a Russian restaurant chain. Starbucks is now called Stars Coffee in Russia. And these are just 2 examples. There are hundreds like these. From retail giants to food chains to car makers, every Western brand was in a rush to exit Russia. It was all part of a plan. The West called it economic isolation, and let me tell you, it has failed miserably. Because once Western firms made their exit, others swooped in. The void in Russian markets was filled quickly. Indian, Chinese, and Turkish companies made their moves, and now they're making profits. Western boardrooms see this, and they're asking themselves one question: did we make a mistake? They want to return now, because Russia remains a lucrative market. It is the 11th largest economy in the world. It has more than 140 million customers. This is a country rich in oil, gas, and minerals, not to mention a major military power. So Russia will always be in business. And if you're a business firm, you don't just walk away from a market like this. Western companies did, and they're paying the price for it. Which brings us to the next question. Who will return first? Most likely companies that are not directly affected by the sanctions, like retailers and food producers. American cosmetic giant Avon and beverage firm PepsiCo are examples. Fun fact, both these firms never fully exited Russia. They continued doing their business silently, and they're eyeing a full comeback now. Who else is plotting a return? French car giant Renault is another name. They too want to return to Russia, and it's not just the Western players who are rethinking the boycott. South Korean companies want to return too. Firms like Hyundai, Samsung, and LG, they want to be back. Again, because Russia is a major market, and global consumer brands want a slice of it. So what happens next? If Western firms return, it will be a PR nightmare for their governments. It would undermine the sanctions and send a mixed signal to Ukraine. As for Russia, they won't complain. But do they want Western businesses to return? President Putin says he's open to the idea, but he wants compensation for the shoddy exit. Listen to this.
The market situation is different. Companies have become stronger and increased their capitalization. Their cost is different now. That's why it's obvious that every such deal will require a separate thorough consideration. If niches have already been taken by Russian companies, as I said earlier, and as the saying goes, the ship has sailed. There won't be preferences for those who will be coming back.
The West was desperate to isolate Putin. Western businesses left Russia to make a statement. But in this period, the Russian economy grew more than many G7 members, and Russia is far from defeated or isolated. So after all their preaching and lecturing, the businesses want back in. Moral of the story? Profits trump politics.
Greeting you with aloha and namaste.
I love India.
Presence, occupation of a territory by another country pertains to India, what we saw in Kashmir.
How do you see Trump's America?
Yes, the current administration behaves differently from the previous administration.
Are you saying that there are foreign powers who are trying to bring down the current government in Syria?
Exactly.
Bluntly, Iran, maybe Russia too.
Prime Minister Modi committed to South-South, cooperation.
Not over 50%.
Is Ukraine prepared to pay the price for that peace?
No compromises at the cost of territorial integrity and sovereignty.